Welcome to the channel. In this video, we're going to take a look at the report for Community 22 for Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. This was released on the 9th of April 2021, if you're watching into the future. This report consists of two parts. In the first part, the devs talk about the progress they're making with the current update. And then at the end, there is a short paragraph where they start to talk about the mechanics of future updates. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to read through what the devs have got to say about the progress they're having with the current update. There's greetings, dear comrades of the Soviet Republic. Here we are with another report to tell you about how we've advanced towards the release of the next update. Maybe the real life may be chaotic, but in this game we work with pure mathematics and many things may look stable and linear, quite easy to understand, even if they may be a bit complex. Thanks to reports from our internal testers, we're able to make several fixes and adjustments in the game, and that brings us a few steps closer to the public test release. There is not a definite date for that yet. So they're still working hard on in fixing the major bugs in the private test branch, and hopefully that all those really big problems will be resolved before the update drops into the public beta test branch, and hopefully that will not be too far in the future. So moving on, we fixed some random crashes connected to citizen optimization. We've had several issues with construction vehicles. In one case, they were not able to find their route to constructions or from them. The only solution was to build the pathway using cash. I think that what that actually means is that you the only option you had was to build the building with cash. Now this should be resolved for newly planned pathways. Then we had some helicopters getting stuck near construction sites due to the limited space and other reasons, and we fixed that. We fixed an issue with voltage overlay for power plant switches not showing properly, and dealt with an issue connected to terraforming, allowing a tunnel to be able to be brought out of the ground. That'd be quite interesting. Let's have a quick look at the power overlay. I must admit, I'm really looking forward to this power overlay, and I'm going to be really interested in how that power overlay looks for my current series. So as soon as this update hits the beta test branch, we'll be firing up my current series within that context, and we will definitely be taking a look at the power overlay. So moving down, we've adjusted the operation range for helicopters which work for hospitals by adding additional 700 meters to the range of the hospital. Then we updated the rendering background for underground mode to make it look better. And we fixed some issues with electricity connected to building optimization, and changed the calculations for wind turbines and solar power plants to make them less linear. Thus you may have lower output with slower wind or less sunshine. We are also tweaked the price of curved bridges, especially the railroad one, and now there should be no raining or snowing at the same time, which occurred occasionally in November. And that concludes the update section of this report. As you can see, the devs are making pretty good progress. I'm really glad to hear that, and I have to admit, I'm really looking forward to this next update. Some of the new features are really going to alter the way that we actually do things in the game. So moving on to the final paragraph, and now we have something special for you. We've already exhausted the features of the upcoming update in our reports, and we may tease you a bit about what is to come in the update after helicopters are released. There are plenty of requests and suggestions about certain perspectives of the Soviet era which we plan to implement in the future. The police mechanics are coming up, but it's not as that simple as you may think. We will implement things which you would not expect. Here are a few new buildings which will give you a glimpse and allow you to use your imagination what may be part of the future of your republic. These buildings are orphanage, courthouse, prison, and secret office. Interesting. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to speculate about how I would see this mechanic working. And I think it's probably going to work at two levels. The first level is probably going to be similar to the way crime is implemented in other games. Now, if any of you haven't played City Skylines, the way the crime mechanic is implemented is that what you have is in an area within a city, you have a potential for crime which is based on, I think if I remember correctly, low education, low quality housing, and I think it's also whether the trash piles up again. Then what happens is that ticks up slowly in an area, and if the crime gets to a certain level, then you start to lose your residents, and I think you get reduced efficiency in industry. And the way it's countered is you put down police stations, then send out police cars which patrol an area, And what happens is as the car passes each building, it reduces the crime in that building, and occasionally the police cars pick up criminals and bring them back to the police station. And every police station has a holding area where they hold the criminals. But what happens is if that holding area fills up, then the police cars are unable to go out on patrol because they've got nowhere to bring the criminals back, and that's the reason why you build prisons. And then what happens is the criminals are transported from the police stations to the prisons, and as long as your prisons are not full, then your overall crime rate is under control. But of course, the key factor in city skylines is that what you do is you keep your areas clean, you give them good accommodation, and also probably the key is very high education. If you've got a very highly educated workforce, then you have a low crime rate anyway. There's also other things you can do to keep the crime rate down. Now, I feel that in workers and resources, there will still be some element of that mechanic implemented. And I would speculate that the crime mechanic could work in a similar way to the hospital. What you'd have is, and I would say it's possibly the courthouse. I'm going to pretend that they don't intend to build police stations. What you're going to have is put a courthouse in. So what they're doing is going to take the crime up one level. And in that courthouse, you will have various police car vehicles in there. And what these police vehicles do is the same way as the ambulances go out to round the city to pick up people. What will happen is the police cars will go out to somewhere where there is a criminal, arrest the criminal, bring them back to the courthouse where they'll be tried. And then I think rather than storing them in the courthouse, then that criminal will then be sent to the prison. What I would guess is, and this is very much a guess, that the level of crime will be based on alcohol addiction, unemployment, and again, I would throw education in there and a possible long shot of the presence of tourists, because tourists attract criminals. Obviously, alcohol addiction is quite a serious problem in communities. You've also got high unemployment. People have got nothing to do, therefore they turn to crime. And again, at the moment, we can play and completely ignore the number of unemployed workers in an area. So if you say you've got an apartment block that's got a very high unemployment level, that may give you a higher crime rate. And I think that will be the mechanics that will drive it in the same way. And what you'll get is probably a little symbol that will appear in buildings, and then the police cars will go out and arrest them and bring them back to the courthouse. I would say that is the base level crime. Now, of course, the Soviet Union in the 1960s and 1970s was an authoritarian state. I think there's going to be another level of crime above that. This would be a case of perceived crime, because based on your loyalty to the state and belief in the philosophy. And I think this is where the secret police office and the orphanage comes into. And the reason I'm saying this is the fact that the loyalty mechanic is present in the game, but at the moment you have very little ability to actually influence this. So what I'm thinking is that the secret police office will work alongside the court, but the secret police office will also probably go out and pick up people. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the future. But what it will also do is improve loyalty. And of course, you have propaganda in the radio, which will improve loyalty. Now, the orphanage is going to be a bit tricky, so I'm just going to leave that for the moment. And the way I see it is that what's going to happen is that at the moment we've got this mechanic called escapees. And I'm wondering if you've got a secret police office in a town, what will happen is that rather than just losing lots of escapees out of the population like we do at the moment, what will happen is that the presence of the secret police office will arrest some of those escapees. So if you've got a high level of escapees, if you've got a secret police office, those escapees will be arrested and then probably sent to court and then sent to prison. This is where the orphanage comes in, because if any of you are familiar with Soviet history, and apologies for anyone who lived in the Soviet era, especially in Russia, because my history in this area is a little bit shaky. Back in the 1930s, running up to the Second World War, there was a policy that anyone who was arrested as a dissident, their children were sent to state-run orphanages to be, how can you say, correctly educated is probably the term. And I'm wondering whether orphanages are the same. So say, for example, if someone goes out and gets picked up by the secret police, then what will happen is children will appear in the orphanages. Now, what they're going to do in those orphanages, I don't have a clue. I'd say that they would probably get a different education, and maybe they will become indoctrinated and become a bit more loyal. So therefore the orphanage may be a way of actually improving your overall loyalty. So I think loyalty is going to play a big factor in the crime area. And of course there will be another dimension if the loyalty is then moving up and down based on the presence of your secret police headquarters. There's also going to be the influence of radio, and of course another way that the loyalty can then be tied to religion. So if you've got playing on a map with churches, maybe people will be less loyal. And I think this is probably a good place to stop, because I'm really starting to get a bit beyond the range of these 4 buildings. But just to recap, I think there will be a base crime level. I think that loyalty will be a big factor. I think it will affect your escapees, but there will also be the standard crimes in a similar way to hospitals. And to wind up, I think I'll just read the last sentence of the developers. Now we may start dreaming about things coming, and we hope to look for just and prosperous society full of the ideals instead of one driven by fear. Stay tuned for the next report. So hope you enjoyed this overview of Community Report 22. If you've got any ideas, feelings about the new crime layer, feel free to chuck it in the comments on the video and we'll have a little bit of a discussion about it. But until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.